Welcome to our Backyard Brothers podcast. We're talking a lot of different things today, and we took a week off last week. I've taken 2 weeks off, but we are here and we're ready to talk a lot of sports starting immediately. So we're gonna jump in biography first. um, we're doing a biography today because it's a little bit. There was a special occasion that happened this last week. I remember maybe a year ago we did a biography courtesy Cody of Wayne Gretzky. Um, and we talked about Wayne Gretzky and his crazy amount of goals and records that he had set, and he had a particular record that up until this year was pretty much considered unbreakable. He had set the record for the number of goals in a career because he played until he was 39 years old, and was averaging like 35 goals a year, and so very few people could reach that. Alex Ovechkin just broke that this week. Broke that record that was considered unbreakable when he had set it. Alex Ovechkin, as weirdness would have it, also was 39 years old, and he did it in just one fewer game. So almost the exact number of games as Wayne Gretzky, just one game fewer. And so um, and what I really liked about it, him setting this record, uh, during the game that he tied it. There was a big announcement that he had tied the record. They were up by one goal, and I can't remember who they were playing, but they went on they pulled their goalie, right? Because you can do that and add an extra skater on your ice in order to try to get some goals. And so that was what the other team had done in order to try to catch up. Ovechkin had a chance to break the record on an empty goal, and he would not do it. He said, no, I'm not doing that." And so he passed it instead. Didn't even try to break the record on that kind of empty goal and waited for the next game. And he hit the goal. If any of you saw the replay, he hit the goal from like 30 feet out to break the record. It was a pretty impressive shot that he hit the goal on to break it. And the game stopped. Like, not only did it stop because announcements were made, but his whole teammates leapt off the bench, skated onto the ice, and jumped on him. And so it was kind of fun to see everything that happened, and people, teammates, hockey players taking some time out of a game in order to celebrate an achievement that now we can say that most likely Ovechkin's is now the unbreakable record. But records are meant to be broken, and Gretzky was there on both occasions. The one that they tied and the one that he won, and he was quoted afterwards saying that, and I love what he said. And it's another thing about Gretzky, how humble and how great he is. But he said that he was glad that he was there, and there's absolutely no ire in his mind. He said this is just great for the sport of hockey, getting this to happen. And so anyway, that's the news and some of the biography about Alexander Ovechkin. Wanted to see if any of you had anything you wanted to mention about this achievement.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go real quick. And you said it yourself. Records are meant to be broken. That was my thought there, and I think that there at the beginning of time, or however we want to say it, whenever records are first made, there's some kind of like almost just some kind of deadline or level that everyone knows is okay. That's the record, and once that record is met, that's the new record to beat. Right? It's just how it always works, and so it's a huge congratulations to Ovechkin for hitting that because it was considered an unbreakable record, and but records are meant to be broken, and he did. So now everyone's saying, okay, well let's aim for Ovechkin's record now. Let's try to break that record, and good luck to anyone who can do that or get even close to it, because for as long as we've seen, it's taken what 20 or 30 years, I think, is when Gretzky last played. It's taken that long for someone to get as like this. And I think it's cool because I was thinking about how we did a Gretzky biography a year or so ago, and this, Gretzky had made a Hall of Fame career for himself and everything, which made it a biographiable person, if that's a word. It is now. Well, Ovechkin has made himself that as well. And so, you could basically say in 20, 30 years time, or even less than that, so let's be honest, people are going to be doing all these biography things about Alex Ovechkin, the same way people are doing and talking about Wayne Gretzky today. And he's earned that. And so congratulations to him. I think it's great. Yeah, great for the sport of hockey. And it's, again, one of those things that is why sports are so fun to watch. It's, this bond that teammates create when people can do what is considered the impossible.
Yeah, you would think with a sport that allows you to fight, I would like it. But I don't hockey very much. I don't know a ton about it. That I knew Ovechkin's name from playing like the NHL games and things. But other than that, I didn't really know a whole lot, so I can't offer a ton to the conversation. Wayne Gretzky was basically the standard as far as like hockey players that everybody would. And so just an incredible feat by Alexander to be able to break such a long-standing record. And how did it take Gretzky to fulfill that record himself? How long did it take him to get there? To the amount of goals that he got.
Yeah.
600 games?
1,600.
1,600, yeah.
1,600. Okay, gotcha. And the guy did it in one less game. That in itself is quite impressive. Yeah, I don't think that I could really add too much more to it.
I think the commentary I would add. Go ahead, Scott.
No, you're fine, Dustin. Go.
The commentary I would add is, looking at what Wayne Gretzky, did and the persona that he brought to that, understanding, that this is good for hockey. And I think that's what a true competitor who's done great things understands how hard it is. And so they have absolutely nothing but respect for anybody that can get close to that. I remember to bring it back to what I'm familiar with, and I think it was 2017 when Russell Westbrook was sitting at 41 triple doubles and was playing in the last game for 42, and sitting there in the stands was Oscar Robertson, who was going to beat the record, and he led the crowd in MVP chants, and there was absolutely no bigger cheerleader for Russell Westbrook than Oscar Robertson, during that season, and I think it's the same way with Wayne Gretzky and Ovechkin. And so absolutely congrats. And I think any competitor just knows how difficult it is to do great things and would cheer their fellow athletes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. And what's crazy, and Cody mentioned it, that we're now waiting for someone to break Ovechkin's record. It's got to be someone who plays that long, unless someone's making 60 goals a year, which doesn't happen. I mean, someone's got to play for 20 seasons and be that consistently good for 20 seasons in order to break that record. It totally can happen. It's happened twice now, obviously Gretzky's record and then Ovechkin's, but those two are essentially on the Mount Rushmore of hockey. And so you have to get another player of that caliber. And those are generational players, obviously. Gretzky was a generation ago. Ovechkin is this year. So it may be another generation.
Yeah. One thing to add with what you were talking about, Dustin, kind of comparing it back to basketball, the last thing I can remember in comparison is when I think it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was at the game when LeBron James broke the record. It was like 30,000 points or something. And he was in the stands, and once it happened, and they stopped the game as well, right? They stopped the game and kind of announced everything. They showed him on the stand standing up and clapping for him because, as you said, only those who have done it know how hard it is to get there. So I wanted to point that out too, because I think that was a notable thing to point out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, great. Let's have a couple of NBA minutes. I have two things I wanted to mention for NBA minutes, but some of you may have others. The biggest one is the news that just came just north of where Yancey is, and just south of where I am. The Denver Nuggets fired head coach Michael Malone 3 games before the end of the regular season and before the playoffs started. They were the 4th seed in the NFC, or they are the 4th seed in the NFC. Wow, in the Western Conference, and they had lost 4 games in a row, which was obviously bad. But it just didn't make sense to me to fire him when they did. Wait till the end of the season if it's that bad. The All-Star, the record since the All-Star break isn't good. They talked about a little bit about the team mentality just not being very good right now. It just didn't make sense to me, though, still to do that at the time that they did. So let me stop there, turn it over to you guys. And if you have any similar or differing thoughts about firing Michael Malone, the winningest coach in Nuggets history and the only one that led him to a championship.
What to put my best, like Adam Schefter impression, like the news that I'm getting, the news that I'm hearing is that, there was a lot of problems with chemistry, that there were some very heated arguments between coaches, players, and other staff and the GM. And so, don't forget that the Nuggets GM, I forget what his name was, but he also
Calvin Booth.
Calvin Booth has also been stepped away. So this was, 2 of your biggest pieces in the organization have been let go. And so I believe that this was about issues with staff, is kind of what I'm hearing. But I think that the NBA coaching staff probably feels the same way that players did after the Luka trade, which is like, what can I do to be safe in my job?
Yeah. 2 years ago, he won a championship. Now he's off the streets. And there's a statistic that 4 of the last 4 teams, the last 4 head coaches in the NBA to win a championship, 3 of them are no longer with the teams that they did it. The last 4. 3 of them are no longer with their teams. Mike Budenholzer won with the Bucks. He's now in Phoenix. Now Michael Malone, and the other one is slipping my mind right now. But we'll think of it in a second. But Yancey, Cody, any thoughts?
Honestly, the only thing I can say, and this is before Dustin pointed out the staff issues, is kind of poking fun at myself. It sounds like I was the GM from what we were talking about, right?
Get him out. Well, how many games did you say he lost? Get him out.
You only won 50 games this season? What a loser.
You couldn't win 2 championships in 1 year? You're fired. Get out. I don't care if you say it's impossible. Schedule another.
Yeah. They also cut Russell Westbrook. And so there's staff or personnel is just going nuts right now. And they won their first game since that happened. They have 2 more games left, but it just seems like, are they giving up on the season? Like they shouldn't. Like they're a 4th seed. They're probably not going to get to the NBA Finals. I didn't think that they were based on what was happening, but being the 4th seed means you get a home court advantage in the first round. I mean, it's not a bad spot to be. I don't really get it. So.
Yeah, and with cutting Westbrook, I didn't see that news. That's news to me. But cutting Westbrook again, it's crazy. So Westbrook has had a very revitalizing season. He's been playing really well this season compared to his age and tenure. But they lost a game in the 4th quarter because Westbrook missed a wide open layup. And I don't think that that's a fireable offense. If you forgot to send 1 email for work, I don't think that's something your boss would fire you over. And so I believe that this is probably there's probably a big blow up behind the scenes that we don't know about with lots of emotions, and the owner decided to say that's not going to happen on my watch.
Yeah. The other piece that I wanted to cover real quickly was the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, all on the same team, they won't even make the play-in game this year. They were officially eliminated from playoff contention last night after a loss. This is again that team with those 3 stars, literally nobody else, just those 3 stars. But it's crazy to me that how this team has gone from bad to worse, or to being the runner-up to the NBA Finals 3 years ago when they lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA Finals, to getting a complete makeover from their general manager, James Jones, who has completely destroyed that team by trying to go for 3 stars at the expense of team chemistry. And this is what happened. They're out.
Yeah, I bet 2 out of those 3 will not be in Phoenix next year. I think that we'll see a total explosion there of the roster. But I think that my only analysis on that is that it's a team that heavily focused on offensive power, which right now in the NBA is an offensive league right now. It's a high-scoring league, and the most important thing you need in a high-scoring league is a really good defense. And Suns overly focused on offense, I think.
Good analysis.
I think the most surprising thing about this Suns team is that they weren't coached by Doc Rivers.
That's funny.
Thank you.
Any other NBA minutes from anyone?
So in both the West and the Eastern conferences, the playoffs are set. The teams that are going to be in the playoffs or the play-ins are set. The number 11 seed is eliminated, right? So all of the 1 through 10 have set. So there's nobody fighting to get in. And so it's more of just jockeying for position within that 1 through 10 to see who's going to be in play-in, playoff, and what positions are going to be. And so that's an interesting thing to see, is just kind of the last few games is just position jockeying.
Yeah. And that'll be our focus next week, is NBA first round preview, as well as the play-in games, because those start next Saturday, something like that.
Tuesday is
well, the play-in games, yeah.
Play-in games will start on Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll cover the first couple offline before. Okay, let's look at very briefly, at the women's NCAA tournament and how that went. Let me know if you can see this bracket.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So if I recall, UCLA, a lot of us had UCLA in that the Final Four, and they were. Here's the Final Four officially. UCLA, UConn, South Carolina, Texas. I believe, I know I got 3 of those. I didn't get Texas in there. Cody had Utah, by the way, who lost in the first round.
Thanks for pointing that out.
I just had to. I don't know. I think Dustin and Yancey both called Texas in there, as well as South Carolina. I had Notre Dame as well coming out of that bracket. That was my only miss. Let's see. I think a couple of you had USC in that instead of UConn here. But other than that, we were all pretty good with this one. In fact, I had the exact matchup in this championship, UConn, South Carolina, but I thought it was going to go the other way. I thought South Carolina was going to win that one. So
UConn kind of dog walked them, huh?
What's that? Oh yeah,
kind of dog walked them, 23 points.
Oh. Yeah, that's it wasn't a game.
UConn's got some big girls. They're kind of husky.
How funny, Dustin. Did you save that one all week for us?
Well, that was fresh off the brain.
Oh, okay. Freestyling these days.
Any thoughts from any of you about the women's tournament here?
I'll leave my joke on the other team just to hang out.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Just don't jump to the other side. So
Cody got it.
A little slow there.
okay,
That's for me.
okay. Yancy, Cody, anything?
I don't know.
Okay.
Right.
I'm going to stop share this one, and I'm going to open up a brand new presentation. So, do you see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, I am going off of how we filled out the brackets in person right here, not necessarily the ones that are on the app, because they kind of changed a little bit from when we filled it out to the bracket, and so I'm keeping tabs on this. I also do my own point counting. I do half a point for the play-in games, 1 point for the first round, 2 points for second round, 4 points for Sweet 16, 8 points for Elite 8, and then 10 and 12. That's how I count. And so this was the result of the first four. Alabama State and Mount St. Mary's. North Carolina destroyed San Diego State, and Xavier beat Texas in a come from behind. Dustin got all four of those right, so got 2 points. Was the only one of us to get all four of those right. The first one, Alabama State, being a gimme for all of us. We were all given that one. But other than that, I got half of them, and the other two of you got 3 out of the 4. So, and we're obviously not going to comment on these games, but please stop me as we comment on any of these. So this is the top left side of the bracket from the entire thing, 1 through 16, who goes to the Final Four. So, and you guys covered the first 2 rounds 2 weeks ago, so I don't need to really cover that too much. So I'm only going to be talking about from the Sweet 16 on, where Auburn beat Michigan and Michigan State beat Ole Miss. And then this went chalk, 1 versus 2 in that Elite 8 game, and Auburn did end up beating Michigan State. What comments about any of these games or these scores down here? Cody ended up with 19 points in this, so 19 in this particular area. So, and that's all of these games combined. Again, that's 1 point for these rounds, 2 points, 4 points, and then 8 points here.
Now, did I have I had Auburn and Iowa State in mine, or did I have Ole Miss there?
You had Auburn and Marquette, believe it or not.
Oh, Marquette!
And so they didn't even make it there. That's why you didn't get more points, because you didn't have Auburn winning that whole thing like they did. But that's why, because Auburn did win this particular bracket, you got the most points. Yancey, you had Louisville and Michigan State, so you had the other side of that. But Louisville also lost in the first round. I had Michigan and Michigan State, so I missed on Michigan in there, and Dustin also had Louisville and State. Any thoughts or reactions to these games? I don't really have any other than I would echo what you guys said the previous time you were on, that this game, Creighton really beating up on Louisville, was a shock, because
Yeah,
it
I
wasn't
didn't
close.
see that coming at all. Yeah.
Did I predict that one correctly on this bracket? Creighton over Louisville, or did I say
You and I, Cody, both got that right. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, no specific comments on any specific game. Auburn, obviously, being a Final Four team, played really well and deserved that number 1 seed in what they did.
Yeah.
They have a star that'll probably go top 5 in the pick in the draft, Johnny Broom. I think that's it.
Yeah. A top 5 pick, probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny
Yep.
Broom sounds like a chart-topping 1920s singer. Coming up next, Johnny Broom.
Okay. Moving to the top right bracket. In this one, Duke beat up, or actually it wasn't a beat up. They held on against Arizona. I think they won by less than 10, their first time this tournament, up until that point at least, that they had held on to beat Arizona, to beat Arizona there. You guys talked about it during the podcast last week when Alabama shot a ridiculous number of threes that set a record in an NCAA tournament game and just ran off the floor against BYU on fire. Beat BYU in that game. That was the first time since 2011 that BYU had been in the Sweet 16 since Jimmer Fredette era. So that they got back to that, but couldn't handle the Alabama 3 storm. But Duke could. They took care of Alabama pretty easily, actually, in that Elite Eight game. Duke wiped the floor there with Alabama. So again, all of us were pretty close on this particular bracket. Just for who we called in this, I had Duke against BYU. Yancey had Duke against Bama. Look at that. Good, nice job, Yancey, with Duke winning. So you had that all right. Cody, you also had Duke and Bama, but you had Bama winning. So, and Dustin also had Duke and BYU.
So just one thing I wanted to point out with that Bama BYU game, me and a friend were talking, and just had someone told BYU beforehand, we're going to give you 81 points, they'd say, oh, we'll take that, like no issues. But in reality, it doesn't matter. At least in that game, it doesn't matter who would have been playing against Alabama; they would have lost. No one would have scored more than 113 points, not even Duke, in that specific game.
Right, I agree.
That 25, 26 threes, whatever it was insane. And so, although BYU got beat, I mean, no one else would have beat them. They scored 81 points. That was good, and they have a reason to hold their head high. Honestly, just got
Agreed.
Yeah, again, just to comment on that, I forget the total number of threes that they made, but the points that came just from the threes was almost more than BYU's total points, and BYU scored 80. It's like,
right.
it was pretty ridiculous there. So that was such an interesting game to watch and so fun and how well they did. And then compare that to the very next game against Duke, where Alabama, I forget, scored 60 points or something. And Duke just was able to shut their offense totally down with a different defensive strategy.
Yeah, I think to put a number to that, Dustin, if Bama wasn't allowed to take any of their 2-pointers at all and could only rely on their 3-pointers, BYU would have won that game 82-75.
That's a crazy stat when you think about it.
So,
And I just looked it up. It was 75. Yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
Scott. But the only thing I wanted to add is, that it was amazing because the previous record for threes in a tournament game was 21, and so Bama didn't just beat it; they shattered it. They by 4 extra threes. It was amazing.
okay, any other comments about this bracket? Okay. Moving to the bottom right. By the way, this was also 1 against 2, chalk, and 1-1. I say that because it happened again on this one, 1 versus 2, and 1-1. So Houston beat Purdue, although it was very close. It was a 2-point game. Houston barely getting past Purdue. Tennessee, not so close. They beat up Kentucky pretty good in that game. And then Houston beat Tennessee pretty handily in that Elite Eight matchup. So, so Cody, you had Houston and Kentucky. So it was close, but not Tennessee. Yancey had Clemson and Kentucky, and Clemson is way over here. And you guys talked about it last week, scoring 13 points in that first half. So you're not going to win doing that, even though they almost did.
50 in the second half, and it wasn't enough. Yeah.
Right. I had Houston and Xavier, actually. And I picked them as my Cinderella team, and they couldn't get past Illinois in the first round. So that's let's see here. And Dustin, you had Clemson and Kentucky as well. This is where some of the problems came for Dustin and Yancey. You can see 8 and 10 points each there. Cody and I got a lot because we both had Houston in this Final Four. And that's why we were able to get a few more points than you two. And so Cody and I started pulling away from you two at this point.
Yeah, that's a rough, it's one of those things, like, you try to guess who would win, and if I would have guessed instead who would have lost, like, I would have done better. It's But looking at Houston's path, I mean, I think Houston had a little bit of a struggle against Gonzaga. I think that was close, and then Purdue 2-point lead. Tennessee, I forget what the score was there, but Houston did not have an easy path, and I think it really showed the resilience, especially in what they're able to do, later, what we'll talk about later, against Duke.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. The final bracket on the bottom left, this was the only one that wasn't 1 versus 2. This was 1 versus 3. And the 1 still won. So Florida destroyed Maryland. I think it was almost by 20 points in that Elite Eight game. This was a crazy game. Who watched Arkansas versus Texas Tech? Because Arkansas had a lead there, and Texas Tech came back and won. Or was it the other way around? Sorry.
Yeah, Texas Tech came back and
yeah, that's
won,
right. Mm-hmm.
In the final minute.
So about that game. So I was up kind of late watching the game, and Arkansas was up, and I was in bed watching it, and I was nodding off, trying to stay awake.
Oh no!
And it was like, I don't know, it was like 4 minutes left, and Arkansas was up like a 10 or something at this point. I'm like, okay, they have it in the bag, right? And I was going to go golfing in the morning, so I was like, all right, I'm going to put it down. I think they can do it. Well, I tried to fall asleep, but my phone kept lighting up. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I looked over and I saw a text from my friend. It said, I hate being a Hogs fan. I said, are you kidding me? I looked it up, and they lost by, it was like, what, 1 or 2 points in overtime. I'm like, are you kidding me? I couldn't believe it. And then I missed it too, because I was like 4 minutes left. Like they can do this.
Yeah. And then Florida beat Texas Tech. I can't remember that score. I think it was fairly close, but Florida had a 5 or 6 point lead the whole way. By the way, Dustin said Memphis versus St. John's. So Memphis lost in the first round. St. John's lost in the second. So
I'd say that's where his points went, but were you about to tell me where I screwed up? I'm guessing.
Yeah. Here's where I screwed up. I had Maryland, which I guess is not too bad, against St. John's as well. So, Yancey, you also had Memphis against St. John's. So.
Yep. Well, there we go. I screwed up the same exact way Dustin did.
And Cody had Colorado State against Texas Tech. And that's why because you got Texas Tech where you did, that's why you ended up with a few more points. We all struggled in this particular bracket, though.
Yeah, I did way better last year. I was actually pretty close last year. This year, abysmal.
Yeah. I mean, with this whole tournament, it was a fairly chalk tournament. Obviously, the Final Four was all 1 seeds, and that's something that, in current March Madness era, you can't count on for it to go chalk. You got to play to the upsets, and because so many of us did, and then it went chalk.
Yeah. Any other comments? I mentioned something to you in text about UConn's Dan Hurley being butthurt about losing to Florida, and saying some things that just he was not happy and frustrated with the refs and frustrated with calls. They gave Florida the best game of the tournament, really, except for that national championship game, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, that's the only thing that I would call out there, was that you got to lose and win with equal grace, and Dan Hurley couldn't lose with grace. So.
I think that when you're at this level, when you're playing with children and young adults, these are young adults, 20 years old, and then you look a little lower at high school and they're kids. I mean, you're not there to teach them basketball. You're there to teach them life skills with basketball as the driver. And unfortunately, I think that, Dan Hurley probably has a little bit of introspection in order to fix that, to remember what he's doing.
Yeah, good comment. Any other comments on this bracket before moving to the final four?
No.
Okay.
Definitely want to agree with Dustin, though, as an overall backdrop to our view on sports, that it's a teaching tool for life, not just the sport could probably be like the second least important thing when we're talking about sports. It's about the things you gain out of them. And I just wanted to highlight that and just say how much I agree with that statement, that you're supposed to use sports to make good young people, not look at the young people who are good at sports and then decide to teach them. So I do like that, Dustin, that you were able to highlight that and say, like, hey, maybe look at your own personal character before you're teaching our next generation how to act. So I appreciate that, and I agree with you.
Yeah. Here. So, like Dustin said, there was all 1 seeds. It's actually only the second time that has ever happened. The only other time that happened was 2008. Memphis and Kansas, and I was serving my mission, so I don't know the other two, but I know those two played in the championship game. But that was all 1 seeds. So this is only the second year that has ever happened. All 1 seeds. And Florida beat Auburn, which is the same thing they did in the SEC championship game. So Auburn still couldn't get past Florida. On the other side, let's talk about this game. Houston and Duke. Who wants to start?
I'll start. So Cody, whatever like angst you had against yourself for going to bed early, times that by 10 for me, because that's what I because so this was this past Saturday night. Daxton was here with us, and and so he'd take him to the airport Sunday morning. So I had my alarm set for like 4:45 a.m. So I knew I was getting up real early. And so I was watching this game, and there's 7 or 8 minutes left, and Duke was up by 11 or 12, and I said, I got to get up early. It's 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night. Duke has this handle, and I'll watch the highlights in the morning to see if what else is all there. Went to bed, and when I woke up in the morning, and I saw that there were 17 March Madness notifications on my phone. Like, whoa, how did I miss this? And so then watching the highlights to see what Houston had done was incredible. But then to talk on specifically what Houston had done, Duke was up by 6 with like 34 seconds left or something crazy like that, and they turned it over 3 times in the final minute, and just gave Houston so much opportunity. And I think that just comes from a level of complacency that you see the scoreboard and you say, I got it. And you take some complacency, and just, wow, what happened there?
Yeah, I was going to say a similar thing, Dustin, that, it is sort of about what Houston did. They won the game, but it's about what Duke did too, in order to lose that game. You said 3 turnovers, missed free throws, a bunch of other things that led to Houston being able to win that game. And it was crazy. And I have a statistic for you that blew my mind. So since 1986, NCAA tournament teams are 335-1 in games that they beat their opponent in field goal percentage, free throw attempts, assists, turnovers, and steals. The only game that a team lost was this one.
That's insane. Oh man, that is not the record you want to be breaking.
Hey, I mean, to comment on that, the only score that matters is the one when there's zeros on the clock. Mm-hmm. That's the only score that matters. Nothing else matters.
Yeah. Okay, and then there was. Oh, does someone have something else?
Sorry, I was just gonna add to it as well. There was I guess with Houston, and we've seen it throughout the tournament, I think there's a third game where it was extremely close for them. And so the credit for Houston though is that they never gave up either. They were never on the other side of complacency. We're like, there's no hope for us at this point. It was like, no, we are going to work our tails off until we're told to go home, kind of thing. And so kudos for Houston for playing until the final second. The second thing I wanted to say was, and I'm curious what you guys have to say with it, is there may have been some help from the refs, especially with a Cooper Flag thing. If you saw what happened, it was I think it was a free throw where he just put his arm over someone, I think, and they called it. And I don't know all the penalties and whatnot, fouls in basketball, but it didn't look like anything to me. And so I was like, that didn't make sense. And I've seen a lot of people saying that was, the turn essentially for Houston, that maybe came from refs. And I could be wrong about that, but it looked like it. And rooting for Houston here, I was like, I'm okay with it, of course, but it being non-biased, it definitely seemed like the refs helped a little bit.
Isn't that over the back?
They called it over the back, is what they called it. I
don't know that I agree with that, but that's the just to clarify for Cody. I think that was the call, and coming over the top of it. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, no. I was just trying to say, like, to me, like I guess if you want to do it by the book rules, that was an over the back foul, right? By the rule book, that was. I don't know if you can call that at that time in the game though, because it was so on the line.
Look, if we're in the YMCA and you call that over the back, I'm fist fighting you. Like, I'm gonna just be real with you. Like, so I think that a regular basketball player would be like, really, ref? Like, that's, and as a fan, I think we can all agree that that's a little weird that you choose that time to call that loose of a foul when it has that much writing on the game.
Yeah,
but
we've talked.
Duke could have not given the ball to Houston three times in 30 seconds, and they would have been in a much better position. And I mean, I don't care how much ref help you have. When you give the ball to the other team 3 times in a row, you're doing more than the refs could do for you without it being obvious.
Yeah, agreed.
On the comment on the foul, like across all sports, I am of the opinion, and it is the die on the hill opinion, that like a foul needs to be a foul consistently regardless of circumstance. That in basketball, in the 5th game that you play and 10 minutes into the first half, if that's going to be called as an overback foul, it also needs to be called with final minute in a Final Four game. There needs to be consistency, because it's unfair for momentum swings to happen because of emotional moments that the refs are responding to. That's not part of the game. The refs, they're there to keep the rules straight. And if you allow the rules to bend, then the rules break.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely understand that, and I respect that point of view as well. And I don't know if there's a way for me to refute it either. I think you're right. It's just so hard sometimes. And we're getting a little bit off topic, but like if we talk, I remember us having this conversation 2 Super Bowls ago, right? When the Chiefs beat the Eagles, when there was a holding call on James Bradbury, I think. But you just hate to see a game end that way, even if it's the right call. And so, but again, I don't think I can refute you. I think you're right. It's just hard to see it that way. So
my response is, have you ever considered not breaking the rules?
Yeah, dude. I gotta agree.
Yeah.
That's how, like, just tell me what they are so I can stay in line with them. But if you're gonna say, yes, it's this every time, but then you call it this way the first time me and you interact, I'm gonna be like, well, this guy's full of it. What am I supposed to do? I can't,
Right.
There's no actual jurisdiction for me. You know what I mean? I just have to kind of play the game and hope he doesn't decide I foul the guy.
Yeah. Then there was this game, the national championship game, where Houston did exactly what Duke did. Houston had a 12-point lead in the second half. With about 12 minutes to go, they had a 12-point lead, and they lost it. Florida won it, and it wasn't the exact same situation. Houston didn't turn it over the same way that Duke did. They just didn't score. They forgot how to play offensive basketball the last 4 minutes of that game, and they couldn't even get a shot up at that last play. You gotta give it to Florida's defense to be able to step up the way that they did, and the offense to not give up and to fight and to win that game. So.
That last play looked like intramural basketball. He was just trying not to double dribble. That was hard to watch.
Yeah.
It was awful. I hated that. I feel like that's one of the worst ways, if not the worst way, to lose a game, let alone the national championship game. I mean, at first, because I'm not as knowledgeable in basketball as everyone else, I'm like, what is he doing? Pick up the daggum ball and shoot it. I'm like screaming at the TV.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah.
And you shoot it. I'm like screaming at it. I'm like, what? I was so mad, and I just and then I realized it's like, okay, so I guess that'd be considered a self pass or something like that. And it didn't to me, but kudos to the player knowing the rules. You know what I mean? Like he's trying to block everyone else. Someone else get to this ball, but it sucks. I mean, at least you want to get a shot off, right? If you miss a final shot, you miss a final shot, but not even be able to shoot it, it just sucks.
Yeah.
And if you're that guy, you really can't be mad at your teammates because, the other four guys expect you to shoot the ball in that moment, not let go of it halfway in the air and then stare at it like, oh, I'm not allowed to touch that thing now. Yeah. So it's hard to have a reaction time based on something that's not supposed to happen. He did do everything he could trying to give his teammates an opportunity to get to the ball. But if I'm on your team, there's no way that's what I think is going to happen next. I need to turn around and chase after a turnover that you just created.
Yeah.
And on that one, like his teammates passed him the ball. It was expected for him to shoot, and he lost his confidence, and he thought that he couldn't make the shot, and so he tried to pass it again and ended up with this travel situation. And his teammates looked at him, and I immediately thought of dodgeball. Patches O'Houlihan says, look like a bunch of retards trying to hump a doorknob.
I wasn't ready for that.
But to comment on Florida, I think Florida led in that game for a total of like 53 seconds.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was crazy. I really did like what Walter Clayton did at the end of that game. If you saw, he's the star for Florida. He was held scoreless in the first half, but then it was erupted in that second half to help win them the game. He went up to every single player for Houston, gave him a hug, and he was being really good sport. Because I mean, that's a horrible way to lose, and they're like all Houston's players are down on the floor. Some are crying and everything, and before celebrating, he goes up and gives all of those guys a hug and everything. And so I think that was really good sportsmanship to see. Is always good. So
I agree for sure. That just shows you the kind of person and kind of character you are. The only other thing I wanted to say, maybe I'm not sure if it's a refute or not, but what you had said, Dustin, about how he lost confidence. I don't think he lost confidence. It was just really good defense. He couldn't shoot over the guy who came up he was right in front of him. And he had a foot on him and he was jumping up. So there's no way he could shoot it. So, I mean, unless you did a crazy rainbow shot, but I don't think that was possible. And so I don't think it was anything about confidence. It was just really good defense. He couldn't do anything about it is what I thought I saw.
I would agree with that too. Yeah.
I just want to say that if I ever started a gang, I believe the local police force would refer to us in the same way that Dustin referred to those dodgeball players. I had to get that off of my chest.
Yeah. In terms of score, Cody got another 10 points because he did have Houston in the national championship game, and that means the score very lopsided. Cody
whooped us.
With us there. So yeah, I was the next closest, but I wasn't that far from either of you two either. So Dustin or Yancey beat Dustin by half a point for that third spot. But so
yeah, congrats, Cody.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to stop share this one. We'll see how far we get. How about that? I think we can do it in half an hour. We just have to speed it up a little bit. Okay.
Can I interject one thing?
You can
Uh,
interject one thing.
So reminder that the Masters are going on. Going on this week. Round 1 was today. Most exciting tournament in golf. In fact, they've done a study years ago, and Masters Thursday and Friday are the third and fourth least productive day of work in all of the US.
Nice.
Days 1 and 2 are days 1 and 2 of March Madness. So the Masters is next in productivity loss.
That's a cool statistic. Okay. Dustin, you're up first. Let's see if we can go a little faster through these so we can get through them all. I'll try to move us along as well. But Dustin, you're up first.
All right, Arizona Cardinals, the very middle of the pack in a lot of these statistics, points per game and points allowed, very middle of the pack. But they did very well in the running game, mostly because they also have a running quarterback. And then defense, they didn't know how to stop the other team from moving, plays.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray, not a terrible year. Some bad things here, but still 3,800 yards is great. 21-11 could be improved, but still okay. And then, total of 26 touchdowns. James Conner, 1,000-yard rushing season. As we said, this was a team that ran the ball very well. And then a player that we had a lot of expectations from in Marvin Harrison Jr. Had 885 yards and 8 touchdowns. 8 touchdowns is very respectable for a rookie. But didn't see much else out of this core except for there and Trey McBride with 1,100 yards.
And by the way, I forgot to do the All-Pro colors on this, but you're going to see an All-Pro on Trey McBride there. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison looks like he's trying to sell you a fragrance.
Or like steal your soul. That's what I was thinking.
I was thinking the King Kong movie on the island. Yeah.
So here, we got some guys and Jalte Froholt or whatever that name is. That's
Your mouth.
yeah, this is
I think Scott's cat was walking on his keyboard there.
It's hard to judge this offensive line because on every single play, Kyler Murray runs like a toddler who stole a toy they shouldn't have. And so I don't know how to judge this offensive line apart from their health, which obviously struggled. On the defensive side, again, nothing that really necessarily pops off the page here. We got 5 sacks from Collins there, and 7 tackles for a loss. Decent numbers there, but nobody that's Pro Bowl, I don't think. In the linebacking core, Kazir White with 137 tackles. That probably leads the team there. They're at the Mike linebacker position. Obviously leading the team from a defensive side, but as we saw, this defense had trouble getting the other teams to go off the field. In the secondary, Budda Baker is,
he was an All-Pro. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously there's the leader, 164 tackles. He is somebody that's all over the field, everywhere, and is the leader of this team, this defense. There, 164 tackles is a lot, especially for someone his size.
And someone who's a safety.
Yeah. Not much to talk about with everyone here on the bench. I would mention Trey Benson, sharing that responsibility, 290 yards. Not definitely very much the backup running back, but sharing that responsibility there. And then, nobody else that I would really call out here. For the defensive bench, again, this was truly a bench play. I would like to call out Dennis Gardeck. Lots
That's
of
who I was going to call out too.
22 tackles, 6 of them for loss, 3 sacks, interception. that he was definitely very impactful on the defense, even with limited playing time. He's a guy that you should probably look out for in future years to see if he can pop into the starting lineup.
Yeah, and he has a great nickname. He's the Barbarian.
I was going to call out
Oh, sorry.
Roy Lopez just really quick because he has a lot of numbers there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gillikin's Island, I guess is what his nickname is, but a 49.7 net and 19 within the 20. Only half of your punts you're putting within the 20, which all these punters' legs can get 70-yard punts, and so you should be able to put everything within the 20. And so that's a little bit of a struggle there. The coaching staff, Jonathan Gannon and everybody's in their second season, but again, it was they missed the playoffs, and it was a middle of the road season, and now you're at a 33% winning streak.
Yeah. Okay, stop share real quick. Any discussion, Dustin?
This is a team that over the years have had strong weapons and haven't been able to deliver a playoff appearance as a result. Once again, they've got Kyler Murray healthy and had a stronger season, but still unable to get the team to the playoffs. And it's hard to know. Do you need to change your quarterback, or do you say you just you need to stick with it a little bit longer? Kyler Murray, he's what, in his sixth season or something like that now?
Something like that, yeah.
What do you guys? So there's a question to pose. You can respond to that and make your own comments.
Well, the first thing I would say is I think they just gave him a big contract extension maybe last year. So he's going to be there probably for the next 4 years, or whether they want him to or not. I think, and he was playing at the beginning of the season, if you all remember, like an MVP candidate. Yeah. He was playing so well at the beginning of the year. It just didn't sustain, and that's something we had talked about. So I think they just need to find a way for him to sustain a level of play that he is clearly capable of. And so if he does that, if they help him with a few more weapons or better offensive line, that he doesn't have to spend all the time jittering around there in the backfield, I think that this Cardinals team can make a playoff push if they improve that defense as well, because Kyler Murray has shown that he's capable of playing at that level.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just saying, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of going to echo that. What you're saying, Scott, is he's shown that he has potential of elitism, if you want to say it, but he needs all the cast around him to do that. But he also can show when he doesn't have that, he can be, at best a moderate, quarterback. So it really is dependent on who's around him.
I think he's a super talented dude whose weapons, all the battery is getting drained out of his offensive weapons by such a crap defense. I think that Kyler Murray is a good quarterback surrounded with mediocre talent, which kind of exacerbates the fact that he's good but doesn't have all the things to see success because everybody's so tired. They're on the field too often. Defense isn't getting other guys off. That would be my assessment of this Cardinals team and Kyler Murray. Sorry.
Okay. Yancey, you're up with the LA Rams.
Let's get it. So first in the NFC West, 10-7, not an awful record. Won the wild card against Minnesota, 17th in points per game, 26th in yards. Fourth best in turnovers, only 14. 24th in rushing. We'd like to see that come up. Defense was helping them out a lot, being 5th in red zone percentage, but almost the worst when it comes to trying to stop the run, allowing 4.6 yards per carry. Acceptable. Let's go up. Matthew Stafford had what I would call a pretty solid season as far as numbers go. Over 3,500, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I like that ratio. Offensive weapons looks like Corinne Williams played fairly well, 316 rushes, over 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, helping while receiving, getting 34 of those for 2 touchdowns, just under 200 yards. Cooper Kupp, was he injured? He had to have been injured.
They all were part of the season, all three
Okay.
wide receivers.
I was
yeah.
going to say, those numbers don't look like any Cooper Kupp numbers I've seen before. Puka Nacua, I'm assuming also struggled with injury throughout the year. Yeah, it seems like these guys struggled to stay healthy, and that's why those numbers were so low, because I felt like these were a playoff contending team otherwise. Offensive line seemed to stay pretty healthy and not being penalized too often, other than Jackson, who had the most penalties but still not crazy. Well, he shared that with Limmer, however you say that. No real defensive leaders here, but I would point out Jared Verse, I guess, 66 tackles. Definitely got a shout out to 8 sacks by Kobe Turner over there. Didn't really see that.
I would say that Jared Verse did win the Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Oh, well, that's definitely worth an honorable mention. Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't know that.
I just want to say they have a collective 20 sacks among all of them.
Yeah.
20 sacks more.
Yeah, they are. They are getting quarterback.
Yeah.
135 tackles, 5 of them for a loss, 1 sack, 1 interception. For what's PD?
Pass deflections.
Pass deflections. Thank you. 7.5 sacks, 12 tackles for a loss for Byron Young. Give him an honorable mention.
Okay.
Quentin Lake's hair bothers me. He made 111 tackles, 5 pass deflections. I think Cameron Curl is the next in leadership, I guess, as far as numbers go, but nobody else really is going to get a mention from me.
Cameron Kinchens was a rookie. He was also in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year with 4 interceptions, 1 of them returned for a touchdown. He played pretty well as a rookie as well.
57 tackles, 6 pass deflection. Yeah, that's good for a rookie at the free safety position for sure. Feel free to hop in if there's anybody that I'm skipping over here. I don't see anybody that I want to make fun of other than Dylan McMahon. Hope Vince isn't your dad. And then I think that's it.
Yeah.
That hairline is what's bugging me, Cody. That thing started in the middle of his head. Let's see. Same thing on this page, looking for somebody to make fun of, but I can't really see anybody. Numbers aren't standing out to me other than McCullough with 43 tackles, 4 interceptions while playing from the bench is pretty good.
Yeah, another rookie too.
Nice. They do have some young talent on this team, apparently. Ethan Evans, 55 punts, 46 net, or 46 average, 41 net, 30 within 20, fairly acceptable. Coaching staff, Chris Shula in his first season, Sean McVay for the 8th, I guess this would be his 9th coming if he comes back, and then Michael Floor coming back for the second season rather, for this team. So a kind of young coaching staff supporting a nearly decade-long coaching staff.
And I would point out number 1, the best team in terms of penalties per game. So very disciplined team in LA.
That is an important stat to point out. Thank you for not letting me miss that.
Yeah. Okay. Stop share this one. Nancy, any discussion on the Rams?
If we could keep the offensive weapons healthy and catch a better running back, somebody that can take a little bit of that pressure off of Stafford, this is a contending team. They would be in the playoffs But without being able to keep those weapons healthy, Stafford doesn't have he's an extremely talented quarterback, but he doesn't have the it factor to take this team on his shoulders, in my opinion, to the next level. He needs help with that. Because even with Megatron, he struggled at certain times. And so I think that leads me to believe that he needs those kind of guys with high caliber performances to really be able to lead a team to success.
So I just want to pitch in really quick, and I guess in my opinion, correct what I would say need to be corrected. So they have a really good running back in Kyron Williams. So I think he was a rookie or a second year, one of those.
I think he's third year.
The third year, he had 1,300 yards and like 14, something like that. So he's really good and very agile, very quick on his feet. So he's got the backfield covered, and then they got Puka Nacua, who's obviously one of the best receivers right now in the league. They did get rid of Cooper Kupp, and they probably need to find another receiver to help equalize that out, because right now they're just going to double cover Puka the whole time. So they do need another receiver, to your point, but at least with those two starting points, so their running back who got 1,300 yards and Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, I think, is in a good position, especially with Sean McVay at the helm. So I think they've got something to do, some stuff to do in the draft. But other than that, they should be a contending team again for the division this year.
Yeah, I was gonna. Oh, go ahead.
I don't want to argue the point that their running back didn't have a good performance. He did. I agree with you there. I'm saying he's going to need a number 2 guy to support him, or those numbers will not stay there. And that's what I'm predicting, is that his success is going to start to drop the more they need to depend on him, because they don't have Cooper Kupp to throw to anymore. And if Puka Nacua isn't as healthy and the same guy that he was when he came in, you're going to have something kind of balance that out. And so that's why I say you need another good running back, not necessarily replace the one you have, just give someone to supplement him and keep him healthy.
That's what I was going to mention as well. He had 316 rushes this year. That is insane for a running back to have that many. And so his legs are going to fall off next year if they don't get someone to help him. And running back shelf life is already really tough in the NFL. And so you have to get Blake Corum healthy. I think he tore his ACL halfway through the year. And so he's that second guy that was looking good. But they need some more help back there to keep people fresh.
Agreed. That would be my take on what you were saying. I don't want to discredit that running back. I think he is a good running back. But if you don't support him, he's not going to have any tread on the tires in year 4.
Dustin, anything?
Comment, right, is the Rams won the Super Bowl 4 years ago, and they've except for I think 1 year out of that have been a perennial playoff team, right? And so I see them as a team that, contrary to what Cody believes, always has a chance each year, and that it's just they had some bad luck with injuries and things like that, but still ended up being a playoff team. And so you keep trying. They made some changes, obviously, with getting rid of Cup, but they'll see what they can do in order to keep trying, be a playoff team, and see if they can make a deep run at it.
Cody, I think we're going to finish before you can do the Seahawks, but we will do the 49ers first and probably end with them and start with Seahawks next week. But the 49ers, obviously, they were predicted by almost everybody to be one of the contenders for the NFC crown. Instead, they finished last in the NFC West, went 6-11. They were good passing the ball, 4th in yards, but they were really bad turning it over, 27th there with 27 turnovers. And they also they were okay on defense against the pass, but overall not very good on defense either. Brock Purdy is about to get paid. He's probably going to become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. That is probably what's going to happen. And that's going to come with some things that I'll talk about later. He had an okay season, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That's just a little high on the interceptions. You'd want to see that change just a little bit. But other than that, 65%, 3,800 yards. That's a good season from him. obviously, this is not the collection that you wanted to see coming into the season. You wanted Christian McCaffrey there. You wanted Brandon Ayuk somewhere in here. Just injuries took their toll. George Kittle still had a great season. Injuries just were awful. Juwan Jennings also had a great season there, but injuries took their toll big time. Offensive line was okay, especially on the left side. Left side is good. Right side is that's how it was last couple of years as well. Nick Bosa, always a good player. He had 9 sacks this year, forced fumble recovery. Leonard Floyd on the other side helped take some pressure off. He had 8.5 sacks of his own. So pretty good on both of those sides. But Leonard Floyd is gone. Fred Warner is, he had kind of a down year because we found out after the season that he played like the last 8 games with a broken bone in his arm. He just played through it. And so his numbers were a little bit down by his standards, even though those numbers are fantastic. He was an all-pro player, but he was playing with an injury. Devondre Campbell was actually let go because of refusing to play once, what's his name, Dre Greenlaw came back. And so they instead cut him from the team and said, we can't have that kind of juju on our team for a guy that decides, I'm not even going to play because you benched me because the guy came back from injury. So anyway.
What a ridiculous idea to have.
Right. Yeah. Charvarius Ward is one of the casualties that's going to come through Brock Purdy's extension. He has to go. They had some good things with Renardo Green, Malik Mustafa. Those 2 rookies were really good. Christian McCaffrey should be the starter. He struggled with injuries, didn't score a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk also didn't score a touchdown. Both struggled with injuries, but talk about that in a second. Nothing else I'll point out there. On defense, Talanoa Hufanga is another great player that was injured throughout most of the year. He's a starting safety when he's healthy. Jake Moody struggled on field goals. He missed 10 of them. That's not what you want to do. He only missed 1 extra point, which is nice. But Mitch Wishnowsky actually split time with Pat O'Donnell because Wishnowsky was hurt about halfway through the year. I think he played 2 more snaps than O'Donnell, which is why he gets the punter's nod, but only 22 punts from him. Kyle Shanahan in his 8th season will have to get 2 new coordinators for the 2nd straight year because Brandon Staley was hired as a defensive coordinator in New Orleans, and he fired Nick Sorensen, who was only had 1 year as the DC. You can't, as the 49ers, who has really good defense, you can't go 29th in points and points allowed. And so Kyle Shanahan fired him, and they're looking for a new leader on the defensive side of the ball. So that is it with the Niners. I know that was quick. My discussion point is this. The 49ers weren't the only team in the NFL to struggle with injuries, right? A lot of teams did. But the way that the Niners responded, they went 6-11. They had injuries to a lot of key players, and they just didn't play the way that they should, even with some guys that were supposed to step up. And now, with the extension everyone knows is coming with Brock Purdy, you're having to drop a ton of players. Deebo Samuel's gone. Charvarius Ward is gone. A bunch of other players have to leave in order to make enough cap space. My question was, in my mind, there was more to the Niners suffering than injuries this year. There was something else going on with offensive and especially defensive, but just turnovers and other bad play call things. I think the NFL's defensive coordinators are figuring out the Kyle Shanahan system, and he has to adjust because they had a tough year this year. And so my question to you for analysis is, was there more going on negative side than just injuries in San Francisco? Is this a team that should still be considered a top contender in the NFC, or did something expose some weaknesses that need to be addressed?
Let me use a fight analogy. So when you train to fight a specific person for like 6 weeks, and then you find out 3 days before you're supposed to fight that person that you have to fight somebody else, it does a lot because you now have to throw away everything you were thinking about for 6 weeks and fight a new human, a completely different person that you haven't looked at. That's what I feel like happened to the 49ers if you condense that to their entire season, because they're ready to go in here being faster than everybody with Christian McCaffrey, having all these really good receivers and an incredible defense. And then when the season started, Christian got injured, and we really just didn't have the same tools that were available to us last season. And it was like a completely different fight when we got in there. And they were just, I think, set on their heels and performed poorly the remainder of the time because of how different of a team they saw they were. And it turned out, oh, we thought we were something different, and they were exposed as, well, you kind of needed this, and you needed this, and you needed this. And then when they couldn't replace those moving parts quick enough, I think it kind of exposed them to the rest of the league, and that's where all those losses came from.
Nice. Dustin, Cody?
So I don't know. Okay. Yes, there was definitely something else going on. Can I identify it? I don't think so right now. But what I can say is, with your other question is, are they a team to continue to be a contender moving forward? While the possibility is always there with Shanahan leading the team, my 2 cents against it would be, after a year that they had, then going into and losing a bunch of key players after that kind of year is going to make it even more difficult to be that kind of team. And so, while I said it's possible with Shanahan because he can work some magic, I doubt it. I think they'll be a good team. They're still going to give everyone problems. But I would not expect them to be a team to be, hey, this is going to be a team going, striving for the Super Bowl or striving even for the conference championship kind of thing. They'll give teams problems, but I don't expect them to be what they used to be.
I think that my response would be, that the Shanahan system is good, but it also depends on the right personnel and the right resources in the right place. And so, you drop a great system, but that doesn't mean you can put Trent Williams at running back. Like, you got to have somebody that acts like Christian McCaffrey at running back in order for the system to work. And so, no, the system's not broken. You just didn't have the right tools in order for the system to work well. And maybe defenses are figuring it out more, but I don't think Shanahan's, dusting off his 2021 playbook and saying this baby's going to work again. Like he's evolving as well. And you look even at like the Chiefs offense and how it's evolved in the last 6 years. It's very different than it was 6 years ago, even though it's still the Andy Reid system. And so I think that's the best way that I can respond to that.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone. Sorry, Cody, we're leaving out the Seahawks for today, but we will start with the Seahawks next week and finish up the NFC West. Next week is just talking about NBA playoffs, followed by NFC West and AFC East. Just the last Seahawks and then the AFC East. If we have time, we'll also talk about baseball, but we may push that to the following week as well, since it's already going on and we can just talk about it a little bit. Whenever we can get Bob scheduled, how about that? We'll talk about baseball, whether it's 2 weeks from now or sometime in May. So
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks everyone for holding on to the very end, and if you give us topics to talk about too, people out there. We're not beholden just to our lineup. We want to hear from you too. So let us know what you want us to talk about.
We got a new viewer. Shout out, Grandma.
Awesome.
See you guys.
Okay, thanks everyone.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah.